Welcome back to another episode of Southern Sorcery. Thanks everybody for checking out our channel and spending some time with us today. We are looking at our first in the series of Spider-Man Commander decks that we are getting ready to launch. Today we are going to be taking a look at Doc Ock, the Evil Inventor. So this one is going to be really fun. But before we jump into that, please help us out. We are super close to hitting our goal of subscribers. And when we hit 5K, we're going to give away a ton of prizes to you guys. We'll do a whole watch party, a live stream, all that kind of good stuff. And we're going to be giving away tons of precons, singles, accessories, nerd gear stuff. Speaking of nerd gear, they're our forever sponsor. Please go check them out. Use code SOUTHERN at checkout for 5% off of whatever other discounts they're already running. They have an amazing selection, lots of storage options, lots of accessory options, and they are fantastic. But with no further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video and see what Doc Ock has to offer to us. Okay, so first up we have Doc Ock, the Evil Inventor. He is 5 blue-black, so Demir, that is that color combination. So 7 total mana cost for a human scientist villain. He is an 8/8 and says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, target non-creature artifact you control becomes an 8/8 robot villain artifact creature in addition to its other types. So any artifacts that are not creatures, you can turn them into creatures at the beginning of combat, 1 per turn, at least to start. So this card's pretty interesting as it can animate your artifacts. So basically what we are going to want to do is load this up with tons of mana rocks and ramp artifacts, things that are going to make our artifacts cheaper, creatures that are going to pay off artifacts entering the battlefield, those kinds of things. And then we're going to have a army of 8/8 robot villain artifact creatures to just absolutely demolish our enemies. Plus, with that amount of ramp, we're going to also have a bunch of extra turn spells in here, so we can hopefully chain a few of those together to just absolutely pop off around turn 6 or 7. That is the gist of what this deck wants to do. So with no further ado, let's check out what the rest of the deck has to offer. And first, we'll start off with our artifacts. So we've got tons and tons of mana rocks here, but let's just walk through them alphabetically. That'll make the most sense. So we've got Arcane Signet, taps for mana of any color in our commander's identity. We've got Bident of Thassa. This is a legendary artifact enchantment that says when a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you can draw a card. So we'll get card draw off that, but also we can animate it into an 8/8, which is super nice. We have also got Bolas's Citadel. Is super good. If you've never played with it or against it, this thing can also end the game out of nowhere. It allows you to look at the top of your deck and play spells and lands from the top of your deck. And if you play a spell from the top of your library, instead of paying for its mana cost, you just pay that much life. So whatever the CMC of that spell is, you pay that much life. So you can really churn through your deck quickly with Bolas's Citadel. But then also, what's super nice is you can also tap it, sacrifice 10 permanents, and each opponent loses 10 life. So if you've got everybody close to within range, or we're taking an extra turn or whatever the case might be, and we're getting close to being able to close out the table, and doing this will kill everyone, you can go ahead and sack those 10 permanents and tap Bolas's Citadel to drain everyone for 10 life. So another good way to close out the game. We've got Bonesaw, a 0-cost equipment, essentially giving us a free artifact to play, so that'll pay off any artifact triggers we have, but also for free we can essentially animate this into an 8/8. We also have Chromatic Lantern, a mana rock, Cloud Key, which is not a mana rock, but it does reduce the cost of our artifacts. When it enters, you can choose artifact, creature, enchantment, instant, or sorcery. It's a very versatile artifact. You choose one, and then spells of that type are 1 less, so we will choose artifacts. We also have Commander Sphere, another mana rock. We have Darksteel Axe. This costs 1 for an equipment that's indestructible. So if you animate this, it becomes an indestructible 8/8, which is great. We also have, in the same vein, the Darksteel Ingot, which is a mana rock that has indestructible, so another indestructible 8/8, and Darksteel Relic, a 0-cost artifact that says it is indestructible. It doesn't do anything else, but again, we'll turn this into an 8/8. We also have Decanter of Endless Water. It is a 3-cost mana rock, taps for any color that we need. Dimir Key Rune, another 3-drop artifact, taps for black or blue. This one's interesting though. You can pay a black and a blue into it to turn it into a 2/2 blue-black horror artifact creature that until the end of turn it can't be blocked. So next we have Dimir Signet, another mana rock for 2. We can turn it into an 8/8. Everflowing Chalice, this costs 0, but then you can multi-kick it as many times as you want, and then it'll tap for colorless for each charge counter that it has. So you can turn this into a Soul Ring, or you can turn it into a Thran Dynamo, depending on how much other mana we have to just pump into this thing. Then we've got Felwar Stone, another mana rock. We also have Helm of the Host. So here's first of a few of the sub-archetype cards that we have. Helm of the Host, we're going to make copies of Doc Ock, therefore animating more of our artifacts per turn, and then also giving us an extra 8/8 because Doc Ock himself is an 8/8. So with multiple copies of Doc Ock out, we'll be animating more and more artifacts a turn, and we'll be able to have more 8/8 bodies. Then we've got Jet Medallion. It costs 2, and it reduces the cost of our black spells by 1, but again, we can animate it. A Liquid Metal Torque, another mana rock, taps for colorless. Mind Stone also taps for colorless. Mishra's Bauble is free artifact that we can animate. Here is a potential game ender. This is Portal to Phyrexia. Again, another artifact that we can animate. Plus, hopefully we'll have tons of mana and cost reduction sitting around, so this won't actually cost 9. But when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. So right off the bat, we're forcing our opponents to get rid of some of their board state, which is going to clear the way for us to get in for tons of damage. And it says at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. So then it's going to allow us to steal whatever we made our opponents sacrifice. So that's also pretty good. Prismatic Lens is another mana rock. Sapphire Medallion, just like the other medallion, is going to reduce the cost of our blue spells by 1 generic mana, and then we'll be able to animate this into an 8/8 as well. We also have Sisay's Ring, a 4-drop for a mana rock that taps for 2 colorless. We have Skyclave Relic. This one is a fun one. It costs 3, and then you can pay 3 extra, so a total of 6 to kick it. It has Indestructible, and when it enters the battlefield, if you kicked it, make 2 tapped copies of Skyclave Relic. So it's essentially going to give us 3 mana rocks and 3 targets to animate for 6 mana. We also have Soul Ring. Of course, we can animate that. We've got Sonic Screwdriver, another mana rock. This one is from the Doctor Who set. This one is nice because you can pay 1 into it and tap it to untap another target artifact. So if you wanted to tap something for mana, then you can use the Sonic Screwdriver, untap it. It's been animated into an 8/8, and you can still swing with it on the same turn. You can also pay 2 into it to tap it and scry 1, or you can pay 3 into it, tap it, and a target creature can't be blocked this turn. So this is another way for us to get damage in. This Sonic Screwdriver is super versatile, very useful in this deck. We also have Spellbook. This gives us no maximum hand size, but also it costs nothing, and again, we can animate it into an 8/8. Then we've got Swiftfoot Boots, so we can give something haste, or we can turn the boots themselves into an 8/8. Talisman of Dominance, another mana rock. The Indomitable, this one is a good one. It's an artifact. It is a vehicle. The nice thing about vehicles here is that you don't have to crew them. If we turn them into 8/8s, then we can just attack with them. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So more card draw, and then you may cast it from your graveyard as long as you control 3 or more tapped pirates and or vehicles. We're probably not going to meet that requirement, but still. We also have Thought Vessel, another mana rock, and Thran Dynamo, another mana rock. We also have Urza's Bauble, another free artifact that we can animate, which is really nice. And then lastly is Worn Power Stone, another mana rock, enters the battlefield tapped. Again, tons of ramp here, tons of mana generation, and tons of viable options for us to turn into 8/8s. Next, let's take a look at the creatures that are going to be in this deck. There's only 11 creatures, so not very many, but they are hopefully all going to be very vital. First, we have Ethereum Sculptor. This is going to reduce our artifact spells by 1 generic, so that's a nice thing about a lot of these artifacts is most of them are colorless, so if you get enough reduction out, they're free to play, which is insane. Then we've got Foundry Inspector. This costs 3 for a construct. It also reduces artifact cost by 1. We have Roaming Throne, which is going to double up our Doc Ock triggers at the beginning of combat. So with Roaming Throne out, his ability will trigger twice, so we'll choose 2 artifacts a turn to turn into the 8/8s. We also have Artifact Creature Staple, Psymaster Thopterus. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, make a 1/1 Thopter Artifact Creature token of flying. So it's just going to give us an army of 1/1 flyers, which hopefully we'll be able to swing in for damage and then get paid off for things like the Biden of Thassa, where we're going to be able to draw cards off of them. We also have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. This is going to come in and become a copy of Doc Ock whenever it hits the battlefield. And then the legend rule doesn't apply to permanents we control, so we'll be able to make copies, making more 8/8s and making more 8/8 artifact creatures as well, continuing to animate our artifacts. Then we have Sakashima the Imposter. Again, 2 blue for Human Rogue. When it comes in, you can choose a creature and play. If you do, it comes in as a copy copy of that, except for it gains 2 blue, return Sakashima the Imposter to its owner's hand at the end of turn. So it's going to copy Doc Ock, but it's going to keep the name Sakashima the Imposter. It gets around the legendary rule. Next up, we have Skorpek Lord. This is 2 and a black for a Necron Noble. This is from Warhammer 40k. It has Menace, and then it has Command Protocols. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+0 and have Menace. So the Menace is really nice because we'll be able to swing out with our 8/8s, hopefully getting more damage through, since they have to be blocked with 2 or more creatures, which is what Menace means. And then it has Unearth, so you can, from your graveyard, cast it for 2 and a black. It comes back from the graveyard to the battlefield and gains haste, and then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Or if it would leave the battlefield, you can only unearth as a sorcery, so only during your main phase on your turn. But the Menace is what we're really after. We want to give Menace to our artifact creatures. Next, we have Spark Double, so another way to copy Doc. You can have Spark Double enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature or planeswalker you control, except it enters with an additional 1/1 counter on it if it's a creature, and an additional loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker, and it isn't legendary if that permanent is legendary. So again, a way to copy a legendary with Spark Double. We also have Spell's Kite. Spell's Kite is a great creature to have because you can change the target of spell or ability to Spell's Kite. So when people go to try to remove Doc Ock or something else that we have out that's doing some real work, we can pay 2 life or 1 blue mana to change the target of that spell to Spell's Kite. So really good. Something a lot of people don't know about Spell's Kite, and I didn't know this until recently, is that you can do it more than one time on the stack. So if someone were to target Spell's Kite with something, or target something you don't want targeted with, and then you use Spell's Kite to change it, and then they try to answer that, they try to answer the Spell's Kite trigger, you can just target it again, which is a very bizarre interaction, but it's what makes Spell's Kite really, really good. Next, we've got Thought Monitor for 6 and a blue, but it has affinity for artifacts, and we've got a ton of them. So whenever it enters, draw 2 cards, and then you have a flying 2/2. Draw 2 cards for 1 blue mana is really good. And then we also have Vidalcan Archmage. Whenever you play an artifact spell, draw a card. So really, really good. We also have 1 Planeswalker that's a really good artifact payoff, and this is going to be Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, for blue-black for a Planeswalker, and it says creatures and Planeswalkers spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. So that means they're 1 cheaper for each artifact we control, which is really good to get Doc Ock out, or to get him out of the command zone after he's been removed, because we'll have so many artifacts out that'll reduce his cost by quite a bit. So that's really, really good. And then also, his abilities are +2, Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and you gain X life. So if I've got 10 artifacts out, each opponent will lose 10 life, and I'll gain 10 life. So this can come in and potentially be a game ender. It's really, really good. And then you can return a target artifact from the graveyard to your hand, or his ultimate is to exile the top 10 cards of your library and put an artifact card from among them onto the battlefield. So all of his abilities are excellent. I don't run a lot of Planeswalkers, but Master of the Bridge is just so good in artifact decks. Next up, how are we going to protect ourselves? We've got some instants here. First, we've got an offer you can't refuse for a blue, counters a non-creature spell, and its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. So we're going to be able to deny our opponents access to removal on ours, or board wipes or whatever. We also have Arcane Denial, another counter spell. We've also got Swan Song. That's also going to be a counter spell. And then we've got some removal as well. We've got Deadly Rollick, Infernal Grasp. We've got Pongify, so that's going to be removal, and Rapid Hybridization. And then we also have Resculpt. So we've got quite a bit of removal here, so for stuff that we don't like, and then a few counter spells as well to try to keep our board state intact. We also run the DMFC Malakar Rebirth. It's a single black, and you choose a target creature and lose 2 life. And then until the end of turn, that creature gains. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So for a single black, we can save something of ours in case of a board wipe or spot removal. We also then can look at our potential win con, which is to chain together a whole bunch of extra turn spells. So we have Nexus of Fate for 5 blue. Take an extra turn after this one, and then if you would put it into a graveyard, shuffle it into its owner's library instead. So if we cast it, goes to our graveyard, then we just immediately shuffle it back into our deck, potentially getting it again, which is cool. We also have Capture of Jingzhou. This is from Portal 3 Kingdoms, but it got reprinted finally in Commander Masters, dropping the price from a whopping $200 some down to like $20, which is, or less, $10. Really much more appropriate for an extra turn spell. We also have Expropriate for 7 and 2 blue, which is really expensive However, starting with you, each player votes for time or money. For each time vote, you take an extra turn, and for each money vote, you can choose a permanent owned by the voter and gain control of it, and then you exile expropriate. So you're going to either take multiple extra turns, or you're going to at least take one extra turn, because that's what you're going to vote for, and then steal 3 permanents from your opponent. So you're either going to take the best 3 things, one from each opponent, or you're going to take a bunch of turns. So expropriate can come in and win out of nowhere, which is why it's on the game changers list. We also have got temporal manipulation. Take an extra turn after this one. So another extra turn. We also have Temporal Mastery for 5 blue. Temporal Mastery also has a cool thing that says Miracle, 1 in a blue. So you can cast this card for its Miracle cost when you draw it, if it's the first card you drew this turn. So if you draw it on your draw step, you can cast it for 1 in a blue, which is crazy. Otherwise, it's 7. We also have got Time Stretch. This is 8 blue, so 10 total mana. Target player takes 2 turns after this one, and then lastly, Time Warp, which is 3 blue. Target player takes another turn after this one. These are expensive spells. That being said, we've got so much mana from all of these mana rocks that we'll have it, especially when you can take an extra turn and untap and go into the next one and take an extra turn. The biggest thing is just getting enough of these lined up in a row to be able to take 2 or 3 or 4 turns. But once you do that, you should be able to close things out. Also under sorceries, we've got Feed the Swarm, so a little bit more removal. You can remove a creature or an enchantment and you lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. We also have Irenicus Vile Duplication. We're 3 in a blue, and it says create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except the token has flying and isn't legendary if that creature is legendary. So another way to copy Doc Ock. We have also got a good board wipe for us, which is 3 and 3 black. Destroy all non-artifact creatures. Their name is Death. It's a great artifact board wipe. It comes to us courtesy of the Warhammer 40k precons. We do not run very many enchantments in this. There's no real reason to. However, we do run Imprisoned on the Moon. This is 2 in a blue to enchant a creature, land, or planeswalker. The enchanted permanent is a colorless land with tap add colorless and loses all other card types and abilities. So it just takes whatever that thing is that's just putting us in a bind and turns it into a land that only taps for colorless mana. So that's really good. Some notable lands here are going to be Academy Runes. Will tap for colorless, and then you can pay 1 in a blue and tap it to put a target artifact card from the graveyard on top of the library. So if we've got an artifact we really want to get back, we can use Academy Runes to do that. We've also got Archway of Innovation. It taps for a blue and says, pay a blue, tap it. The next spell you cast this turn has Improvise, so your artifacts can help cast that spell. For each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities, pays for 1. So it just lets us tap some of our non-mana rock artifacts to pay for a spell. We've also got Inventor's Fair. This will let us pay 4 into it and sacrifice it and go get an artifact card and put it into our hand. And you can only activate that if you have 3 or more artifacts, but it lets us go get something if we need it. And then we've also got Rogue's Passage, which you can pay 4 into it, tap it, and a target creature can't be blocked this turn. So it's a good way to get through that last little bit of damage to close out the game. But that is going to do it for this one. Thank you guys seriously so much. Please like and subscribe. It helps us so much. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and ring the notification bell as well so you get our future videos. And we hope you guys stay awesome and have a nice day, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!